right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to D-Pod. So today we have another BTS episode, but if you've been kind of keeping up with the different people we've been interviewing and you know our team, you'll know that we're running out of staff mentors on our team to interview. And so today we are venturing out into the Northwestern College team, and we have Emily Huang on the podcast. And so my wife, Cata, I had a conversation with her that was recorded, so we'll cut to that soon. But yeah, I'm excited for where this podcast will continue to go as we think of different ways to bring content and share stories so that you guys can continue to kind of think about what the ethos and values of our church are. So here is Cata's conversation with Emily.
All right. Welcome to our podcast, Emily.
Hello.
Hello. How do you feel?
A little nervous, but I think we've been talking before this, so I feel a little better now.
You sound exactly how I sounded the first podcast that I had to be on here. I was like, So, okay, you and I have been friends for about 15 years. We've known each other for 15 years, been friends for about 11 years, right? Since we graduated.
The first 4 didn't count.
Yeah, kind of. But it's mostly because you and I were in different fellowships at the same church at GP Berkeley.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just general intro.
So we graduated 2011. I grew up in the Bay Area near SF in a town called Fremont. Yeah. And went to UC Berkeley, studied psych and environmental economics. And yeah, so Kevin and we moved out here in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
That's right. Oh my goodness.
Yep. So this is the first time in my life that I'm not living in the Bay Area. Because I lived there for 30 years.
Wait, you went to the same high school as Ben Liu, is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, same hometown and same high school. But we didn't overlap because I'm 4 years
That's right.
older.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is describe yourself in 3 words. And then I'm going to come up with 3 words to describe you as well, because we are close friends and we'll see if any of them overlap.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing mine down. I'm putting you on the spot.
I know, I hate these kind of things.
Okay. All right. I have my first word. Do you have at least one word?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready, set, go.
Athletic.
Okay. That's what I wrote down.
This is what other people tell me.
Yes. My friend Emily is very athletic, and I'm competitive but not athletic, whereas she's competitive and athletic. So, yeah.
Not that I'm like extreme athlete, but just,
Have you seen our peer class? If you see our peer class. Okay, so athletic. Okay, second word.
It sounds weird for me to say it.
I know.
It's just what people tell me.
Yeah, okay.
And then I laugh at them
I'm
for
reading,
saying it.
I'm reading your mind. I think
Okay.
it's going to be the same word.
All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Cool.
Helpful.
Okay. I don't think I'm cool, actually. Okay. But then it's because people come up to say, oh my gosh, you're so cool. And then I just crack up.
No, our
And
peers
I crack
describe
up.
you as cool too.
It's just because I wear aviator sunglasses because they're big and cover my eyes.
It's an ajumma reason for looking
yeah.
cool. Okay, so I said helpful, but that's because you're a type 2. And if I ask you to explain anything, I will get like the encyclopedia version of, helpful tips and tricks and all that. So, and you're just helpful in general because you're very fast. My friend Emily moves very fast. Okay, last word.
I have mine.
Okay, I have mine.
All right.
Ready, set, go.
Fast.
Affectionate. I said fast already.
But that would have been the third word if I had to choose.
Yeah. Okay. You are fast for sure. Why did you pick fast?
Because in my mind, everything is about speed. So
this I have experienced.
This is why I actually bump my, I bump my toe all the time. Like I always hit myself in the corner of the wall. So I'm clumsy because I'm trying to, I try to not cut corners, but I try to get from point A to point B in the fast amount of time, which is, the line, the diagonal lines, Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah.
So then I end up hitting the corner of
literally
the house. Yeah, literally. I hit the door frame a lot. Ow. And then I'm trying to go up and down the stairs as fast as I can, and then I'll trip and I'll slip. So yeah, I injure myself a lot.
You are fast though, especially in the kitchen. You're very fast. Yeah. I picked the word affectionate because, because you're very extroverted, and so you like being around people. And that has rubbed off on me a lot. And then affectionate just in terms of like, you're okay with the hugs and the, like side hugs and patting and like all that. And I had to get used to that because I'm not like that. Which also has rubbed off on me. It's a good thing.
Actually, we were just laughing about it earlier, how at our winter retreat a month ago, it was about like 200 people. Almost 200 of us. And I was saying how I realized I was in my happy place and I realized I really indeed I'm an extrovert.
Yeah. And I was dying. I was like, okay.
I was so happy.
Go back in.
I was like, woohoo. There's like a crowd full of people.
So as you can tell, Emily and I are pretty different, but we've been friends for a while. And actually what's kind of interesting is that you and I, our history as postgrads actually like coalesces a lot. We basically lived parallel lives.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just like a year ahead in some respects.
Yeah, especially with children. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're peers. We graduated at the same time. And then I guess one kind of neat thing about us is that we were neighbors in Alameda. We lived in 2001 Central Avenue.
Yep. Sarah Chu lived on the first floor.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
UIUC.
Yeah. So we lived in literally next door to each other. When Jacob was born, I went over a lot just next door to kind of help out and babysit and things like that. And we became home group leads around the same time, right? Kind of in charge of a group of 30, 40 students and learning how to do that alongside our husbands. And then we quit our jobs and went full-time at HB together.
Yep.
And then we entered the 1-year training program for full-time leads together, along with 4 other couples. So we basically lived parallel lives.
Some good times.
Yeah. and then I came to Chicago, and then you came 1 year
a year
later.
afterwards.
Right? Yeah. So it's been very nice. Yeah, living Christian life alongside a friend like Emily. So since this is an episode of BTS Behind the Staff, we're just going to get to know Emily a little bit more. So I think your story of how you got introduced to Christianity is not only interesting, but it's very unique, and it's like one of these like what in the world stories. So can you tell us that story, please?
Yeah. So shout out to Rutgers because our friend Helen Kai is out there, but we've been friends since middle school. So I grew up completely not Christian, like 0, 0, 0, 0 church background, and I thought Christianity was just one of those like, history things that you learn. And so in middle school, but our friend Helen, so we've been friends since middle school. She became Christian in middle school. So she became really evangelistic and wanted to reach out to her non-Christian friends, me being one of them. And there was this movie coming out around her birthday about Jesus.
Oh God.
And a lot of people have heard this story before, but then in an effort she thought, so my friends, they'll come to watch this movie with me if it's for my birthday. And so then for her birthday, we went to watch in the theater The Passion of the Christ. And then people go, isn't that rated R? I'm like, yeah, I don't know how we got in, but I think
maybe her
mom just let us get in.
Yeah.
And then people go, what did you think? I'm like, I was just really confused because I kept getting like Judas and Peter mixed up because they're all, they kind of look the same in the movie. And then I just didn't know any of the characters. Like I felt like I was dropped in the middle of a plot, which is actually true. So now, so somehow, I don't know. I was okay afterwards, though. I didn't, So Helen said that I told her afterwards that, oh, wow, I guess Christians must be pretty serious. So
wow. Maybe. So you basically took it the best way possible.
I think so, yeah. Like I wasn't like so deterred, like, oh, I'm never going to investigate Christianity.
Shocking.
I just kind of just went about my way. Like, oh, that was interesting. And
I wonder what that was about. For a birthday party. So Helen is very passionate and zealous.
Oh yeah.
And I just can't believe that worked in your favor somehow, No, because
we laughed about it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Helen's the one who brought me to our church our freshman year.
We all went to Berkeley.
Yeah. And then Helen invited me to our church about our spring semester freshman year, and I came out and I became Christian a month afterwards.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so 1 month. So what happened in that 1 month? So you came out to our church. What was your first impression of it as a non-Christian?
So I thought, wow, I loved our church from day one. And to clear Helen's name, she's a lot better now. Helen, if you're listening,
we love you, Helen.
We love you. So my first semester at Berkeley, it was pretty rough. so I wouldn't have called it rough at that time, but I was pretty lonely. I had a lot of regrets. I did a lot of things that I felt regretful about. I cut off a lot of friends, pretty selfish. So then my friend Helen invited me to her church, and I thought, hey, I'll check it out. Like, I thought Christians, I had a generally positive impression of Christians. Like, they're pretty nice. Oh. I had a Christian roommate who was another high school friend. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe like I could like meet some people. When I first came, I just felt blown away by, wow, people's like care and interest in me. And, you know, the staff who were like, just started giving me rides and like started hanging out with me midweek. Like they were grad students at the time. And I remember one of them like treated lunch and like we went, I don't know, we just hung out with me. And I thought, wow, this was like pretty incredible. They're my older sister. I have an older sister who's 6 years older. They're about that age. So I guess I didn't view them as like so much older, but I just thought, wow, these like older sister like people who took an interest in me. Yeah. And then not just them, but like the class above me. So Kevin's peer sisters, like they were so fun. Like
they're
the juniors,
really fun.
Yeah. And then the seniors at that time when I was a freshman, class of 08, like they took me in, had me over at their apartment, had me over for meals. Like, yeah, I just fell in love with everyone here because I thought, wow, they're really caring people. Yeah.
So then eventually it only took I guess 1 month to go from like, wow, these people are cool to I believe in Jesus. Like, how did that happen?
So like a lot of our staff, you know, people took this thing called Course 101. So like the week after, so I remember coming on Sunday. Okay, so then that Sunday message, I remember it was on Mark 5.
Wow.
The bleeding women.
Oh, that's what I should have put for you. Amazing memory.
Oh, yeah. Well, part of it is because I had my notebooks and I would review it regularly and I go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what happened in my life. And God spoke to me through that message and I could really relate to the bleeding women. And I don't really remember the message, but I know the message of Mark 5. And I really resonated with that. Like, wow, that's me. Like, you know, like God has an interest in me. And I felt for the first time the Bible being very, like, how do you call it? Like relatable. Yeah. And it really spoke to me. So, so I started taking Course 101 the week after. It was in class format and everything that I read just made sense. I was like, wow, there's actually evidence for God. Like I never investigated Christianity before. I just never bothered to. Yeah. And but then when I started, I realized there's actual evidence. Oh my gosh, like heaven and hell, like that's reasonable. And then when I got to the chapter about sin, I just felt so convicted. I was like, I'm a sinner.
Wow.
So I actually felt relieved. So, which is weird because I could put a name to what I was feeling, shame and guilt. Because I think our society says shame and guilt, that's like, you know, it's all psychobabble talk. And you just have to say, you know, as long as I don't hurt anybody, then I'm fine, which is kind of what I tried to do. I tried to ignore the guilt that I felt when I kind of backstabbed my friends or whatever, betrayed my friends' trust. In high school and even in college, like that first semester as part of the regrets that I had. But then I realized, wow, there's a name for it. It's called real shame and real guilt, which is from my sin. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I need a savior for. So then when we got to the evidence for the Bible, I realized, oh my gosh, there's evidence for the Bible. And if the Bible is true and my sin is true, then I think I'm going to hell because hell's real, like, and God is real. And like, there's a real person I have to deal with. So I remember really thinking about that actually, like that Saturday night before. So we had course lessons on Sunday morning before church. So Saturday night, I was reading the material. I felt super convicted that this is true. And I thought, man, I think I need to become a Christian. But there was also a part of me that felt like, man, it just makes me feel so weak and lame. And like, there's that. And then what are my parents going to think? And
your parents are not Christian.
My parents are not Christian. Yeah. So my older sister became a Christian when she was in college, which I think also really, I mean, that really helped too. I think one, she laid the groundwork. Okay, if she's Christian, then I don't think my parents are going to disown me. And then, and she had been praying for me for, you know, the past 6 years because she tried to share the gospel with me when I was in middle school. But I like,
But, you know, she never took you to Passion of the Christ. So
I didn't think much about it. Clearly, I mean, I didn't think much about the Passion of the Christ at that moment. So you could tell I wasn't very much of a thinker. But so I mean, I'm sure her prayers really had been working the past 6 years. So so that helped. So Sunday at church, pastor gave an altar call, and not that I knew what an altar call was at that moment, at that time, but he said at the end of service, hey, if any of you guys want to become a Christian, now's your time to come up and pray. And I was like, oh my gosh, God's speaking to me.
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, I need to become a Christian. Yeah. So I went up and then wrote a prayer. I prayed and yeah.
And that was it?
That was it. Yeah. March 9th, 2008.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, so had you gone to the winter retreat our freshman year?
No, because I came out after the winter retreat.
Yeah, that's right. Because I don't remember you.
Yeah, no. I was not around first semester, 0. And then all of a sudden I came out and I was like at everything.
So basically, I guess it was Course 101 that helped you kind of go through just the systematic, like this is the next thing to think about. This is the next thing. If this is true, then this is true.
Yeah.
And so in some sense, it was simple for you.
Yeah. And part of it was because, well, in hindsight now, I realized, God had been working, of course, in my life prior to that and really convicted me about, I think it's an issue of seeing sin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing my
sinfulness
in me.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was not an argument at all.
Yeah.
For me. And then it's just the simpleness of, wow, God's real.
Yeah.
And I need to respond. And then I think the church community, the fact that it was so compelling, I thought it was really easy for me to see I can become Christian.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I mean, that's why, in some ways it's so commendable for people who have to actually sacrifice a lot to become a Christian. I think at that time, I don't think I had to sacrifice so much, but it was the next step of faith that I could take.
It was just clear repentance of sin.
Yeah, repentance of sin, and there's forgiveness. And then as I think about it now, I think the next thing I actually started doing was serving right away.
Yeah. So how did you serve?
Yeah. So I started doing Impact. And so I still remember my leader, Jackie Wayne at the time, she was like, you want to serve in Impact? I was like, sure, I love kids. And I started serving right away every week.
So for our listeners who might not know, what is Impact?
So Impact is a nonprofit organization we started in Berkeley and reaching out to inner city Oakland kids and giving them academic enrichment programs as well as building relationship with them because a lot of them have limited resources and limited access to those kind of things. And so part of the vision of Impact is like, hey, helping them to just go to college and graduate. And then along the way, getting chances to share the gospel with them and doing children's ministry program with them that we invited them to. Yeah. And so actually I signed up to be an Impact teacher, a team lead. And so every Sunday for a year, I did set up. So my Sundays were like 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. as a sophomore.
This was our sophomore year, right?
Yeah, sophomore year,
Because I was there too. I did Impact, but I wasn't on the same team as you. I did the Impact tutoring.
The tutoring part, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so owning like a 3rd grade class and doing tutoring for in like 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't actually remember you because we were in different rooms, I guess.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of neat that, what is this, 14 years later?
Yeah.
To kind of recount that we were there in the same building, probably touching upon the lives of the same kids.
Yep. Yeah, that same group. Mm-hmm.
And for both of us, it was very impactful. Yeah. It was really, it actually made a difference that we had something to latch onto in terms of serving God right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important that that people understand biblically that once you repent of your sins and become a Christian, there is no this whole clergy versus laity divide of only the super Christians serve. Yeah. Versus at our church, I think we were given opportunity. There was teeth to the whole preaching that we received of every minister every believer is a minister of the gospel. And you and I received that starting right away, right after you became a Christian. For me, there were ways for me to serve as a freshman, little ways, we had an A2F blog and whatever, announcement videos and stuff. But
I remember those.
Yeah.
When video editing was at its cusp.
Yeah. And DP would make those. Yeah. They were so interesting. But I think that's something that you and I must have taken as normal. Yeah. That maybe at other churches or other people's experience of Christian life is I really have to work up to that. Yeah. But you and I, it's not like we were ready for it. It's not like we.
Yeah, I don't know what I said.
I know, I don't remember what I did.
But I remember praying for them.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. Burdening.
And growing in burden. I can put words onto it now, 15 years later, but it was growing in burden for someone, not me.
Yeah. Which is a novel experience for us,
I was so selfish growing up and wow, to think about these kids during the week. So I literally I picked up the phone and called them and I would like talk to the kids and hey, invite them again. Hey, how was your week? I mean, they're like 7, so you know how much conversation can you have? But like chit chat with them and hey, remember like this Sunday we have impact program and remind them and things like that. And then
and
like,
be genuinely happy to see them.
Yeah. And they're so cute. So it's like, you know, my heart goes out to them and just. And I remember hearing about some of the kids whose like parents and their situation, and my heart just went out to them because they're in genuine like kind of just underprivileged situations. So but I remember with my co-teacher praying for those kids by name, praying for their salvation. Like, so I think in terms of early on in my Christian life, just starting to pray for people who are not Christian. And pray for their salvation.
And that was pretty
I think
immediate.
that was pretty clarifying for me. Yeah. And then I think the fact that my Sundays were so long from like 8 to 5, like just right away, like I just got used to that.
You got used to your time.
And in some ways I'm thankful I didn't grow up going to church because it was just, this was just normal. Like serving.
So you don't know
normal.
any other way.
Yeah. Like, I mean, now I do, but you know.
Back then.
But back then I just thought, this is what Christians are supposed to do. We're supposed to serve and love people.
Yeah. In some ways, I think people that come in without a church background, maybe they have a little easier of a time just doing what the Bible says, you know, because I can speak from the different point of view where I went to church all my life. And there were a lot of things I think I had to untangle in order to say, wait, is this really what, you know, Christian life should be like? And lo and behold, I look at the Bible and I'm like, oh, shoot. It is. This is how it's supposed to be, you know? So for you, like, I feel a little jealous, you know, that it was that like simple for you. But I know, you know, after you made that decision to become a Christian freshman year, it's not like it was all easy, you know? So if you could sum up your college years, I'm sure they were very joyful too. I just remember my memories of you where you were just always with people and you were always laughing. And then you'd come over to my place only when you're like really stressed out. And you wanted to study all night.
Knew that you weren't going to make me laugh. So. Cata, her place is a good place to study.
Yeah, I'm like, if you want,
because I went to like the older sister's place, I wouldn't study.
Yeah, and then right above me was the other Koinonia peer sisters. If you want fun, you go there. But if you want,
I remember one time I had to kill their spider for them. Like, they called me randomly senior year. Emily, I need you to come up right now. I'm like, what's wrong? There's a big red spider. Oh, sure, I'll kill it for you. Yeah,
which was possible because we all lived in the same building. Senior year, right?
Yep, actually living.
25, 33 Heligus.
Yeah.
Oh, that building was so nasty.
Oh, gross. Yeah. I had mold in my apartment.
Yeah.
So.
Rats in the laundry room and, you know, but, you know, good times.
It's all right. Good times.
So
good times.
If you could sum up your college years in terms of like how I guess you started to take your faith seriously and maybe what that looked like as a college student. Because I know you had to kind of wrestle with some things even in college.
Yeah.
A lot of wrestling came post-grad, but you know, for your college years, maybe you can sum up for us a little bit like what you went through.
Yeah. I'll just describe a couple things. So I think a couple of things was seeing myself. So I think after I became Christian, there's that initial honeymoon period. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think I think one point I really had to see myself was in kind of the mundane. Like, because I gave up a lot of stuff, a lot of bad things that were just clearly bad.
Yeah.
And I had to see my sin in a new light, which is like the day-to-day. And it kind of felt like I didn't sin for a year, even though I'm sure I did.
Oh, like after you became a Christian.
After I first became
like
Christian.
On cloud nine,
I was just so happy, like, oh my gosh, and there's purpose and meaning in my life and all that. My junior year, though, I do remember getting really stressed about school and getting really insecure and envious and a lot of emotions with my roommates. And then I was really moody. And anyway, so long story short, it got pointed out to me. And then my direct roommate was really struggling. And I just remember getting hit by this, just really convicted that, wow, I'm really not making things better for her.
Oh, yeah.
And I was kind of clueless to that spiritual reality too, even though my other roommates were aware. And then it dawned on me, in my self-absorption, I completely missed out on the spiritual reality of her life. And so I actually apologized to them because they were kind of walking on eggshells around me. And I think that kind of hit me in a sober-mindedness. And I realized, I mean, it's in a new way. I saw my sinfulness. So that was one turning point.
So these were all girls that you lived with that were Christian?
Yeah. So it was my life group. And it was 4 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. So it was 2 of us in a room each. And I mean, that's how we got close. by like having, people over for dinner.
Yeah.
And like, those were some fun times too. But I had to work things out as well.
Yeah.
So that was one turning point. Another thing was with kind of fighting with my parents too about church involvement as non-Christian parents who are really about my academics. And they were paying for my tuition too. So like, to be sure, they had a point, but I had to really like kind of struggle with them. My dad, we got into a lot of fights about how much time I was spending at church. And even though I kept trying to tell him that I don't think it's church. If it wasn't church, I'd be doing other things, not studying. I was like, I'd be like up to other bad things. I think we should appreciate the fact that I'm going to church.
Which I guess is a little hard for parents to take that truth.
Not that I could have explained it like that articulately, I think, as a college student. But
but for you, you knew that if you weren't.
I knew. So it didn't shake me so much. I think it just frustrated me because I couldn't really articulate. I tried to explain the gospel. I tried to explain apologetics, but it was just so new. I didn't know how, and I got so frustrated. But I think the arguments never shook me, actually. Yeah. I think because I was kind of rebellious as a teenager anyway. So fighting wasn't like a new thing, but it was just, it was the frustration of now I have burden for my parents to become Christian. Yeah. And I wish they could see the gospel as true. Yeah. And I wish they weren't so like mad at me for trying to like live this out. Yeah. But then it never shook me fundamentally because I just knew, well, like this is true. Yeah. And this is how I'm going to live my life. Yeah. Yeah. But then I was kind of used to fighting with them too.
Yeah. I mean,
But actually, long story short, like after I graduated, things got much better. We're like on really good terms now.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, actually. And, you still burden, right, for your parents. But, I mean, that's really important that, what I'm hearing is that even if you were a new Christian, I guess you developed your faith in such concrete ways, whatever chance you got, such that when opposition came, you're able to hold on to, okay, but what's true? Yeah, actually, in retrospect now, I think some of the argument did actually solidify my faith because I had to kind of fight and push back. The arguments actually helped. Yeah, I think so. Because kind of early on, there was a little bit of testing. Yeah. Them pushing against my involvement and I'm pushing back. Like, I think I developed a little bit of a pushback. Yeah, and in some ways that opposition, really isn't the worst thing you could face. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because you have to articulate why you do what you do or how you live. Yeah. And there's kind of, So did that ever come into play as a post-grad, like different temptations or struggles you had to go through then? And how did you deal with, I don't know, any kind of shaking of your faith as opposed to, because I think as I talk with students, they kind of assume once you're staff, you're just on some like cloud staff island, like cloud staff island, that doesn't make sense. Like staff are just
grew
like,
up from Staff Island
and you're never like, struggle with anything.
Plopped here with this amazing,
yeah, but if I remember correctly, you and I went through some stuff, not together, like individually, and we would run into each other at cafes, like, you too, you need to think through some stuff,
I'm thinking and writing, and then
and so I mean, there's probably a lot of angles you could take, but like, how did you solidify your faith maybe as a post-grad? Like, what kind of temptations maybe at work or different things like that were new for you?
So I think the biggest thing I had to deal with first was actually trust with my spiritual leaders. So even though I was all happy and stuff, in my undergrad years, it was like with my friends. And then, but I just had this fear of an insecurity of like not being good enough as a Christian, which is kind of weird because I was such a new Christian. So, it's very quickly, that's how I felt. So I think that's just universal. But I remember having to start dealing with some like past issues that I just couldn't hide anymore. And it was kind of affecting the way that I was able to think. And like people were like, you don't make sense. And part of it has to do with like a lot of denial and like really complicating what I'm actually feeling. So then it comes out weird and people are like, that doesn't make sense. And so I'm really thankful because the fact that I dealt with it and the fact that I just felt so overwhelmed, like I had to just be honest. So in some ways it was like, I just had to bank on the trust of, so hearing testimonies of older sisters and older people who said, wow, I never thought I would like confess any of this. Like I thought I was going to take this to my grave. But what I experienced was love and forgiveness and concretely God's love for me. So I did that. And that's what I experienced. And I think the barriers just started coming down. So I think after that initial kind of struggle, receiving God's forgiveness provided a kind of basis to start struggling with other areas of my life. So it kind of freed up some bandwidth to deal with what you needed to. And I think because I started to see, wow, people are for me. like they're not for my downfall, like as weird as that sounds, but like they actually want the best for me and they really care about me, and they're gonna stay up late talking to me. Like, you know, I can go over, eat their food and watch their kid, and they just live open lives. And so I experienced that. So that gave me the ability to start dealing with other things without so much fear. And so things like I actually had, like, early on, I was really enamored by my career too. Yeah, the first couple years. And so there was one job that was like really not good. And so, not that I recommend this to everybody, but I felt like I had to quit. So I actually quit my job, and then because it was just really, really bad for me. And then actually during that period of unemployment is when I met Kevin.
Yay!
But anyway, not that I was planning that, but so so that was one step actually, because financially, you know, that means I wasn't employed, but I think just trusting that, like, you know, people take care of me. I'm going to do my due diligence, the job search, of course, and things like that. Like, hey, I just wanted to take this step to make sure I'm good, I'm clear with God, and just avoid the kind of like temptations I was facing there. So that's one step.
So going back to what you were talking about, like you dealt with something kind of major in your life, and that freed you up to deal with some of the other little things that maybe you wouldn't have if your bandwidth had been taken up, like kind of like dealing with this other thing on your own. So what were some of the other little things? Like, what are the things that you had to deal with, like as a post-grad, the little things that you actually had now some freedom to work on or deal with?
So I think career was one thing. I think the idol of dating and marriage is another. So I remember there was one point when I guess relationally I was getting a little distant. And then there was an older sister who was talking to me and saying, you know, like you almost feel like you're afraid that we're going to take this dating relationship away from you. And I was like completely clueless to like the receiving end of me. I was like, oh, I am. And she's like, you know what? You're probably sore to yourself. Like, after listening to all those testimonies, you're not going to be like that kind of girl. I was like, yeah, I did. Because I'm like really not girly. But then, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, more and more I just see, I'm just a common sinner with this, like, everything applies to me. Like, common fears.
Temptations,
common everything. And it's those things that like opened my eyes to the reality that, like, wow, just the Bible applies to me in all ways.
Which is kind of funny, because that's how it happened for you as an undergrad too. Wow, the Bible applies to me. Wow, this is true, and this is how it applies to me.
This is true,
But what I'm hearing is, as a post-grad, I think it gets more granular, right? Like, there are so many more ways that you discover that you're a sinner. And then you realize, wow, the Bible applies to me in this way too.
So motherhood. Same thing. Like, I swore that I would not be afraid to, I don't just like, but I have a lot of fears, you know, and
well, and also you were one of the first in our class to have a kid. So in that sense, you did have to kind of pioneer some stuff. I mean, you had older sisters, but like in terms of strength that our peers could give you, we were like, tell us what it's like, you know?
Common fears. So I think, I guess what I experienced as I got older was the more quickly that I was honest, the more quickly I could deal with it. And it's better than like not voicing it. Fears about finances, fears about like career, when we went full time, like, or when I first quit, like losing my salary. So like, just realizing more and more, the faster I'm honest about my fears, the faster that I could receive grace, truth, Bible, like prayer, and like strength, and like the faster I could work through it.
I mean, I think that's one of the things I appreciate about you, is just like, you can be honest really fast. You know, you can just say it like it is. Whereas I have a much more complicated time like netting it out. Sometimes you'll be like, is this it? Is this it?
But it's so weird, because I so wasn't like this 15 years ago.
Wow.
Like, I was so complicated and like so unable to be honest.
I can't really imagine you that way, because I've only ever really known you like post-grad.
It was really the first couple of years out of college that I think I kind of grappled with that.
And what I hear you saying is, you know, like where you got courage to do that maybe is like dealing with that fear you had of like even spiritual authority, right? What they thought of you. So, okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So now you're here in Chicago. You landed here with Kevin and your 2 boys in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, that was really exciting.
That's not a word I would have used. But yes, you are adventurous. So it was exciting for you. So what was it like when you first got here? Like, what was your experience of church plant life? Because you and I have only known Berkeley Church. We were in the 1-year full-time training program.
Yep.
And then this is our first church plant that we've experienced.
Yeah, it
Chicago.
is.
So what was it like when you got here?
Yeah, it was like kind of surreal for the first like couple months, I think. And just funny story. Well, it's just funny how we finally ended up out here, because I think I don't know if we hold the record, 3 weeks?
For what?
Since we were asked if we could.
Oh, really?
Here.
It was 3 weeks?
Something like that.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And then we moved and we came out.
Wow.
I don't know if it is. I'm sure there's other. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, but then we had been like talking about moving for 2 years. So,
like, especially in the training program. yeah.
Like we were supposed to go to Purdue, and then like anyway, so we were supposed to move like at least twice, and then finally the third time, like our students were like, "Oh, we don't have any more tears. Yeah, or we don't have any more tears for you. We'll wait until you leave, and then we'll cry." We're like, "Oh yeah," but it felt different. I remember we're like, "I think this is it."
Yeah, you're actually going.
We're actually going
on a church plant. Yeah.
So when we landed, it just I think it was kind of surreal because it's kind of a blur, and then I'm kind of like also, I mean, as honest as I can be, like I also do hide, like don't deal with my emotions too. So I can be like that, just kind of push through and like do it. And then my emotions catch up with me later. But so then I think I was kind of in that like whirlwind of activity, because we were just like, bam, packing, we need to pack. And then we were like, Kevin's still video editing, like back at home. So we're trying to like do everything. And then like, I was like, anyway, so we just packed really fast. We moved out here, flew out here. And then so when we landed, it felt like kind of like, whoa, like,
yeah,
all
it
right,
was a lot to get used to.
Yeah, it just had to having to get used to. So yeah, I think it was just a lot of like, what's going on and kind of figuring out like, and then most of the staff I didn't know at all. I mean, I knew who they were, of course. And then I think I had most history with Echo probably because places, but we weren't in the same home group. So even getting to like, just having to get to know the staff, their memories of me were like, you drilled us when we were CPIs at HB.
Like that's the extent of the relationship.
Yeah, like the scary driller, like
the training driller.
Yeah, like where I like play devil's advocate, like asking them hard questions. I'm like, oh yeah, that's in the drilling context.
Yeah, I'm not like that all the time. Yeah. So it was. Yeah. It sounds like it was kind of a flurry of activity and trying to get to know the staff. Church plant life is a little different. Like for our students, I guess this is all they've ever known.
Yeah.
But for us in Berkeley, I think we had a different rhythm. And church plant life, especially being the oldest on a team, you do have to set the standards, the culture, the values, the schedule, like everything.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm sure it was as hard as I remember it being hard, you know, and I wasn't even here in the middle of a pandemic. Like it was before COVID. So it must have been hard, but now you've been here 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So what has been the greatest joy being out here on a church plant?
That's tough.
Nothing?
No. I was going to say there's like,
there's a lot.
What to kind of describe.
Yeah.
I think it is getting to know people.
Yeah. Which is ironically the hardest thing at the beginning.
It is, yeah. It's getting to know people and their stories, and I think developing like relationships and friendships and then of course, you know, I know it's such a cliche answer, but like seeing transform lives, right? Like, but seeing people become Christian.
Yeah.
And like really take steps of faith to grow and see themselves as like ministers of the gospel. Like wow, that's so joyful because being on a church plant, there's not much, there's not that many older ones around, right? Even the staff is like not that many compared to like, let's say Berkeley, there's like, you know, like 300, 400 postgrad, 500 postgrads. Right. Like we're trying to set this culture and like create like that family atmosphere. We're like pioneering things. Like it's a lot of like creating new fronts and trying new things. It's a new city, like it's a new context, a different campus. So just a lot of things that we're trying and experimenting and like figuring it out. And like it's more fun than I thought. It's more busy than I thought. Like, and stressful too. Like, you know, I hope this works. Like,
and then you're like, oops.
Sorry. Let's like try something else. So yeah, it's people, and so that's the thing that brings the most joy and the most like strength.
And that's the hardest part too. I mean, building up a church, I think, like if it were all about logistics and schedule, it wouldn't be
tiring.
That. It's just tiring.
That's true,
but it's actually not that hard because there's not much you'd have to, you know, change or think about. But it's because building up the church, building up God's kingdom is all about forming people to become more like Jesus. And like, who can do that, you know? But if you do it together, you really can. Which is why culture is so important. Right? So like I see you and Kevin, and I think one of your guys' strengths is like community building, because you're so fun, but not just because of that, but because
we like to eat. No.
That too. You really enjoy food, you know? And I just look at some of these, you know, seniors and juniors and even the sophomores that I know, and like we're about to send off our seniors to senior retreat, right? At HB in NorCal. And I look at this group of seniors that weren't like, they literally weren't around when I landed here. You know, they were just beginning their freshman year of college when I landed in Chicago. And to see that there's a group of them now really trying to take God seriously, and then even be older brothers and sisters to the younger ones in the Chicago churches, like those really are transformed lives. You know, and all that it took to kind of get to this place where we can co-labor with them even. I think, you know, that is one of the joys. Like I can really relate with you in terms of like, that is the joy of church plant life. Every person here is so precious to you because you know what it took. You know, it took the entire village, like the church, to kind of build them up. So I'm going to ask you the flip side of it. What's been the hardest about being out here on a church plant?
Can I say the same answer? No. Just kidding.
Senior.
No. I love him. In some ways it is people, or I think it's opening up my heart. I think that's the hardest. Like,
explain that a little bit more.
Like it's the like it's the opening up my heart to be vulnerable and loving people, and like, and then so I think what's hard is not to wrap my it sounds weird, like, because our whole lives are ministry, so then to trust that like God is leading every person, and not everything Kevin and I do is so important. If that makes sense. Like it is important, but ultimately it is God's ministry. It's God's church that he's building up. And there has to be this kind of trust. Like I have to trust.
You have to let go of it. Point,
right. Like of course we got to work hard and like do our due diligence and like try our best and pray. But like ultimately, there's just a lot of things outside our control, and like so I think not letting fear be daunted. Okay, so not being daunted by fears to try things, or to like raise people up or challenge people, like kind of all of that. So
and then
maybe my answer is ministry. Like
all of ministry is the hardest part.
Maybe it's a cop-out answer.
Well, I mean, I guess at our church, what's considered normal, because we think is biblical, is that all of our lives are a life of ministry. You know, it's not a 9-to-5 job for us, even though you and I are full-time for church. And then you live in a ministry house where younger brothers live with you. Right? So you literally just don't have a private life. And your house is the ministry house, you know, in Evanston. So I guess that is actually the hardest part, is that, you know, this is the biblical view of ministry. And as moms with 2 young kids, it is hard to kind of figure out like how does that play out in my day-to-day life. You know, so it is tiring, and at the same time it's like, wait, but this is normal life, you know. So I think you and I have kind of a unique perspective out of Chicagoland, that in that you and I are moms, right? And we're moms and wives in ministry with our husbands, like right there alongside them, you know, doing like just as much work for the building up of you know, God's kingdom. So how does that play into, like, how does being a mom like play into just your day-to-day life? Like, do your kids like get watched by other people if you're doing ministry? Do they come with you? Like, how do you feel about your kids' involvement or non-involvement in your day-to-day ministry life?
Yeah. So I think just kind of a broad answer, like I'm actually really thankful that I'm raising my kids like this. So we have people, so I think what is hard is like like you said, right? Like having to kind of balance and raising kids and trying to do everything and juggle things. But, and then like just interruptions throughout the day because people come over and I love seeing people. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, oh, hi. And I have to like talk to them. But, but what I find is that's, not that I'm Jesus, but that is Jesus's life. His life is full of interruptions. Yeah. And everything that happens is an interruption in his life, like all the ministry that he does. So then like trying to welcome that and just be available. So that actually helps me to be more available for my kids too, because in some ways you can view them as interruptions.
Yeah, they are interruptions.
Which they are, like
to even like your thoughts.
Yeah, right. Like yeah, exactly. So that's why we had that Sisters Prayer Retreat on Saturday.
Like, wow.
Yeah, I think all the moms really enjoyed it.
I held a thought for 8 hours.
Exactly. I could read for 3 hours uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted. Like we never get that anymore.
Yeah. So how do I try to have focus time during the day. I mean, when they're at school. Yeah. But once I pick them up, like I'm with them for a couple hours. So, and that's when I try to do like the chores and stuff that don't require like deep thought.
Right.
But it's hard because I'm trying to like get to things.
There are people constantly in your house.
Yeah, people in my house. I take people on so I've turned my drives to pick up the kids into one-on-one times now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just to talk with people.
Hey, are you free for an hour? Just come with me to go pick up my kids.
Yeah.
So we talk in the car on the way back. So just kind of using those kind of times, inviting people into my life, or people are over, and then like so I think just trying to do life on life together. So even though the kids are there, it's not like I can't like see people or talk to people either. So I try to get like kind of like the computer work done during the daytime.
Yeah, that's probably important.
Yeah, so then I don't want to be like on my computer with my kids around too much, and just
not being a mom who's like unavailable because you're staring at a screen.
Yeah,
but what your kids must see when they come home from school is that you are busy talking with people, cooking for people, cleaning with people,
or just going grocery shopping.
People. Grocery shopping, and they see all of that. And they probably don't see the version of you when they're away at school, which is actually doing a lot of the planning, logistics, scheduling, all of that stuff. And that's really important, I think, for our kids as they grow up and see us as ministers of the gospel to understand that actually like they can be a part of our lives.
Exactly.
Like ministry doesn't stop just because they come home. And it's like they can be a part
and they want to be a part of it.
And they want to. Yeah, I see Jacob all the time saying, can I join?
He's helpful. And like the other day we went grocery shopping and he's helping me check things off on the checklist.
And then that hilarious video you sent us of Joshi, who was 2 at the time, like loading bins for Sunday service.
We were like loading snacks in the car.
He's like tiny. He's like 20 something pounds, and he was dragging this huge bin of like supplies or something. And I was like, that's church plant life.
He's like, they want to coil cables when they're around. And so they want to help. They see that. And it's not just, and I never like told Jacob, hey, you need to help me.
Right.
He just picks it up.
It's just exciting.
He's around. And he wants to like, he's really interested in what's going on. And then he notices the uncles and aunties and all the like the college students. He's like, oh, it's uncle this or uncle whatever. And like, who's coming over? And and then like the staff, they help me with the kids all the time, constantly, like helping pick up from school or like whatever. So that like me and Kevin can be available too, or even like senior retreat, like you know, the guys will watch the kids for us because we're gone for the weekend,
and they love being with the uncles.
They love the uncles. Oh my gosh, I think, for a while, Joshua preferred some of the uncles over me. Like,
you're like, I only gave birth to you.
Because they hold him.
Yeah, that's true. And they play with him. And yes, it is a fun life. I think every time I go over to Sherman, it's just so full of life, and it's full of noise for sure, and full of shoes at the front door. Like, but I think in some ways, like life is hard because we have 2 young kids and we're in ministry, and at the same time, like life is so joyful and full. So let's end with this. I don't know how you'll take this, but what would you have been like? What would your life have looked like at 30? Are we 33? We're 33 years old, right? Okay, we're turning 34 this year. We're 33 years old. Gosh, what would your life have looked like without ministry?
Oh my gosh. It's like, I don't even want to think about that.
What would your life have looked like?
Yeah. Okay. Like, I'm really, everything about me that is good in some ways is because of ministry. And I really am not lying when I say that.
Okay.
Like cooking, moving fast, and like trying to like not be lazy and love people and caring about people. It's actually because of ministry. And it's not like it is because like, so like I was reading Lord of the Rings and the hobbits at the very end of, I was telling Cata this at the earlier, it's because I was sick for a couple of days, so I finally finished it again. Yeah. So, you know, the hobbits, they're like, they just like to eat and like lie around. They're really lazy. But at the end of the trilogy, they come back and they have to save the Shire, their hometown, from like these like, you know, anyway, Saruman, the wizard who like took over, he's evil. But they're like these knights now because they've been traveling with Gandalf the wizard and like Aragorn, the king of Gondor. And like they've been fighting orcs and stuff. So they save the village. They're transformed. Yeah. And you're like, how did these hobbits become these like knightly, lordly men? Yeah. And it's because like, wow, saying yes to Jesus over the years and saying yes to the next thing. And okay, that sounds overwhelming, but I'll take that. Like turned me into somebody who's becoming more like loving. Yeah. And I say becoming because I don't think I'm very loving, but like
but compared
to 15 years ago, I am definitely more loving.
And like what you imagine yourself to be like because ministry now.
Before I was Christian, okay, like I kid you not, I would like just played video games and I was so lazy and I didn't know how to cook.
Which like, I can't imagine I know, right? Like, now. Like
I know, it's crazy, right? And then I was so addicted to media and I would just like watch videos all day and like I would sleep until 2 p.m.
So do you think you'd be like that now as a 33-year-old?
Like maybe not exactly, but I would be really lazy. Oh. Yeah, I'd be like, I think my house would be a total mess. Like, cause, and the way I know that is just cause like, that's kind of how I grew up. And I don't think I would have changed very much. Like,
or you wouldn't have had reason.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had reason to change. I think I would have poured into my career and like, that's all. And I probably wouldn't be married because I didn't really want to get married and I didn't want kids. Cause
Kevin, you should think ministry.
He already knew to thank Helen for making me Christian, bringing me to our church. He's like, Helen, I'm so thankful for you. Yeah, that's Thank you for being my wife.
Yeah. So it's such a different picture from how I know you now. Yeah. You are so hyperactive.
And I think it's because the gospel gave me a reason.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's what's kind of emerging out of all of this. You had a reason to, which honestly was people before you and reality of heaven and hell becoming more and more real. Yep. And even as we kind of discussed at our winter retreat, right? Like, you know those things are true, but you don't really, it doesn't get like a fuller picture until you see people in front of you and you burden for them. Yeah. And for us, that was like, for me, it was class of 2019. And for you, it was class of 2020, Cynthia Sue and her class, right? Yeah. Back in Berkeley. And that was the class both of us like graduated off, you know, to their senior year. And then we came out to Chicago. So, I mean, as we're talking about, you know, transform lives and reason to change and all that, like, I'm just thankful for our friendship too, because we've changed a lot over the last like 10 years or so. Yep. Since, you know, since post-grad days when we were just living our lives next door to each other, but not exactly burdened about ministry together, right? Yeah. We were just learning how to be like newlyweds and new moms. Yeah. Right? So, 11 years later, here we are, you know, leading, you know,
still
Chicago
learning
ministries.
how to be moms. Yeah. And still learning how to love people.
We're the same people, but transformed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you for being, you know, a guest on our podcast. Yeah. And this was fun and it's really hot up here.
It is.
So let's end. Yeah. Thanks, Emily.
All right.
All right, thank you for that conversation, Cata and Emily. I just thought it was really neat how Emily described how when she became Christian and started to serve, it was all really simple. I mean, of course, there was difficulties along the way, but just becoming Christian, repenting of her sins, and then immediately starting to serve. Like that was the pattern that she saw, and that's how she lived it out. And here we are, her and Kevin and us serving out in Chicago together. So I'm very thankful for that. So anyways, I'm sure we'll have Kevin on soon as well. But that was another BTS episode. If you have any suggestions or questions, as usual, fill it out in the form. See you guys.